TikTok in China, you can't watch all them dance videos. TikTok in China is all education stuff.
Can we be clear? Did you go there with your family or alone?
The candidate market is so crazily driven at the moment. People get snapped up left, right and centre.
I can't say nothing's been easy in opening a care home in my career.
So there's a lot of UK people working for these Chinese companies.
You get so much more from being a care worker. It's so rewarding, so it's not all about financial.
I'll swim as much as you want abroad. Go on holiday, I'll go in the sea. I won't swim in the UK.
Purpose is such a massive thing to anybody's life.
The water you're drinking at the tap has probably been for 8 people.
You hear of people selling their businesses in their 50s and then dying a couple of years later.
The opinions expressed within this podcast are solely the individuals and do not reflect the opinions and beliefs of the sponsors or its affiliates.
Another day, another guys. Thanks for coming. We've got Dan Wylie. Dan Wylie, that's the correct spelling.
Yeah, it is indeed, yeah.
Friend of our friend of the pod, Steve Kerslake. We're going to be talking about mental health, I hope, and everything you're doing. But what's going on with you, Mark? What's doing your head in at the moment?
Do you know what's doing my head in there at the moment, right? Is I don't know if you boys have had this as well. Do you get the phone call from a UK number, by the way, and you answer it, and it's some scammer saying they're from Free or Vodafone or some shit like that, and they're not. And if you like, sometimes I go along with it for a laugh just to waste their time. You know what I mean? And then, but what they ultimately want you to do is, they're trying to flog you a phone that you're never going to get, by the way, and get your address as well and all the rest of it. Have you had that?
No.
I get about 2 a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to be selling them something else. You want to be selling them.
Yeah, well, a bit of plant.
Yeah, just say, thanks for ringing up. Yeah, if you just give me your bank details, you know. But yeah, is that? I've not had that. No.
Loads of people have had that. Yeah, I get about 2 a week. Yeah, it's like some weird call centre, but they say they're from Vodafone or from Three or one of these phone companies. But when you know, I don't know if you know, if you put in who called me and then the phone number in Google, you get a couple of websites and you can go on and see, and they've got it all on there. Oh, called me, said he was from Vodafone, it's a scam, blah blah blah. You can read all that.
Oh wow!
I've had one from the police, and they've said that they're working for the police and they want to speak to me just to ask for a few questions. Anyway, it turns out that they're not part of the police. They're nothing to do with the police. They're just apparently, like, I don't know whether they're working on behalf of them, but the information doesn't really get. I don't know what it is, but to go and say that you're, calling from the police, it seems quite drastic, doesn't it? But it's
a few of my pals have been done where they're phoning up pretending they're HMRC, and
really?
my pals have transferred money to them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mate.
And then the second they've pressed the button transfer, the pennies dropped. I've just been scammed.
Oh,
it's going on. Yeah, I mean, what's doing my head in at the moment, guys? I went to the theatre. Yeah, nice production, Lion King. Thought that'd be a good thing to see.
Suits you, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. What? When do you have to tell someone to sit the fuck down? Really? 40 minutes was the last person that entered the theatre to sit down in front of me. 40 minutes. And there was probably about 15 people. And I'm getting up and down, up and down. And we were already into, like, nearly the death of the poor fucking, of Mufasa, whatever his name was, by the time the last person sat down. When do they turn around and go, sorry, mate, I mean, it's 2:30 for a fucking reason? Like,
I didn't think they allow it, because funny enough, I've turned up late to a show before, and
it's probably you that was one of them.
and they wouldn't let me in. So they said it was the woman in black. It was in London.
40 minutes, Charlie.
That's insane.
40 minutes.
And to top it off, those seats are horrendous as well. Like, they're so uncomfortable, and you feel like you're just cramped up in it. And how are you expected to sit there for like 2 hours?
Well, the guy in front of me, I felt sorry for him. He had the pillar in front of him, and he probably wished he'd never taken that seat, because every other seat you can kind of move out of the way, can't you, and let people walk past you. But he didn't. He had to get up and down, up and down. And then you've got people with the torch, like the old cinema thing, trying to show people. And then there's some idiot sitting in the wrong thing because they don't know the difference between row M and row L, and then they're moving around. And then all you hear is the door behind you, bang, bang, bang. Absolutely done me sweeted, Mark.
It would. That would. Do you know what? Some of the things that annoy you really annoy me as well.
I mean, it's the whole idea is you think 2:30 is bad enough when going to a production where, to be honest with you, it's going to be all kids there anyway, isn't it? But the kids were as good as gold. All the kids were sitting there. They were from like 5 years old to whatever, sitting there behaving, and all the adults were getting up. And then halfway through, you know, this woman gets up and goes to the toilet, you know, and everyone has to get up in the line. Now you're thinking, there's an interview in an hour and a half. Surely, as an adult, none of the kids are getting up to go to the toilet, but the adults are getting up. Done my absolute sweet.
Do you know what I reckon? Do you know what? That says a lot about the show, Mark, to be honest. No, it must have been a bit boring, I think.
Can we be clear? Did you go there with your family or alone?
I wish, no. I was with the boys.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, my God. It's a great, if you've ever seen it, it's a great, you know, West End show, and it's been around for a long time. And I see it 20 odd years ago when our kids were younger.
Yeah.
And it was just a good opportunity to go and see it. But Jesus Christ. Done absolutely.
My kids love the theatre when I go. And I can't sit still for more than 20 minutes. It's the ADHD. I might struggle a bit today. But they sit, they watch, and I do as well.
Yeah. Get there and watch, but don't like, if you have to get up, don't get me wrong, everyone has to go to the toilet. But I could deal with that. But it's turning up. It wasn't just one person turning up for 40 minutes, by the way. It was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes.
I can't understand how they've allowed that, really. Like, I think they must have just had, like, staff shortage or something. Like someone not on the door.
Did you complain?
I fucking complained, yeah.
I knew you would, yeah.
Of course he did.
This is my thing about customer service. I've got this thing at the moment. No one can do anything. Don't matter what complaint you got. You have a go at something, or, you know, some really bad service, and you try and say to them, and they're like, I don't know what to do, mate. That's the managers, isn't it?
That's if you get to speak to someone.
If you get to speak to someone. Yeah, and we rattled on about customer service last week, so I'm not going to go in there. What about you, Charlie? What's going on?
Mine was a bit more work related, actually, but mine's to do with the time to hire somebody, and that's been doing my head in recently, because it seems that there's some businesses, I think, that really struggle with recruitment, obviously, and that's where, you know, we're here to help, but we're also here to advise. You know, we're here to find the candidates, but also to advise, you know, in terms of their hiring process and the best way to go about it. And what seems to happen is that every so often you get the odd client, and we've just happened to have a few recently, that take their time and quite a long time to bring somebody new on board, and that is from the point of deciding that they've got a vacancy, to then seeing the CVs, to then interviewing them, and then to then offering them a job. Meaning that if I was to send somebody a CV now, the advice is that you jump on that within 24 hours, and you have to jump on that within 24 hours, because the candidate market is so crazily driven at the moment. People get snapped up left, right and centre. So if you're not jumping on that candidate within that 24 hours, it's quite likely that they've got multiple interviews with other clients, and then they'll get taken off the market. So then what seems to happen is that we might send a candidate, should tick all the boxes, might send multiple candidates because we might have to get reserves in because maybe, you know, obvious reasons. And then it might be that give them a call the next day, you know, any feedback? No. Give them a call the next day, any feedback? No. And this can go on for, you know, sort of days and days and days, even weeks sometimes, before we might have feedback. And then what happens is they'll come back and they'll say, oh yeah, I'd like to interview, you know, this candidate A, B, C. Oh,
He's gone.
Sorry,
Too late,
he's gone.
yeah.
He's not available anymore. So we've done all that work and all that hard work to get to the point where we've got a real good clutch of candidates, and we don't stop doing the work after we've sent the candidates for that reason, really, to keep ourselves, you know, give ourselves some backups. But it just seems like there's so much work that goes in that sort of, you know, that starting process, that recruitment process, to find those CVs, find those ideal candidates, and then, yeah, it's taking too long, lost the candidate off the market.
Why do you think that is? Lack of resources their side?
There's got to be multiple reasons, and to be honest, I would understand to a certain degree that, you know, hiring somebody is it's a big move. You know, if you're a small business, whatever size business you are, you've got to have the right people in place in your team, you know, to move forward. But I don't know what it is. I think there's a bit of a catch-22 sometimes with some businesses where they need staff because they're so busy, but they're too busy to recruit. right? So it's almost like that catch-22 that just keeps going on and on and on. Maybe there's an element of, I think, just up and downs in the markets. Obviously, there's lots of things with regards to, obviously the government and different policy changes, etc. There's Christmas coming up, and all of that sort of obviously has an impact.
There's also like not having a dig at you because but the amount of recruiters that I've had phone me in the last, there seems to be a lot more out there. Maybe people are just giving it a go, but they're phoning you and they're talking to you about roles, and then 10 minutes in, they're not even listening to the fact that you might not be interested in a role, but they're actually asking you about a role that's like 30 grand, and you're a managing director of a business. They haven't researched you, they haven't done anything. The amount of phone calls I've had like that recently.
That's insane.
One guy was on the phone. I couldn't even say to him, take a breath. In the end, I'd just say, look, mate, you sound like a crypto salesman to me. No, I'm a serious recruiter. We've got a serious, offer. I said, well, and they're paying good money. And I just said, what do you call good money? And they're saying they're paying 35,000. I'm like, fantastic. I said, it's going to be good money for somebody. I said, but you've got to research who you're talking to. See, I'm getting that quite a bit.
Sometimes there will be instances where the recruiters are going to be just like in sales. You're gonna try it where you can, right? In the sense that if you come across a CV, for example, if I was searching on my database for somebody, and I was going back for all time, going back to people that registered 2 or 3 years ago because the role was so hard to fill, then it might be that I'll give someone a call and their details are quite out of date, right? So it might be that you ask them questions, etc. But I'd never go and sit there and sort of sell somebody a role that I haven't even understood what they're actually looking for as well, which is crazy.
I've had that experience before as well, where a recruitment company spoke to me. We're looking for a certain role, and not being ageist, but some 18-year-old recruitment consultants phoning me, and we're talking about a completely different job role. It's like you've not researched the company, you've not researched what we're looking for.
No, it's insane. So but that time to hire is so crucial, and ultimately if you're not quick to make a decision at a CV sent stage, or when the applications are coming in, whatever it might be, there's a very high chance that in this market you'll end up losing that candidate.
We know though, don't we? Because I'm an advocate for an agency because I've worked with you guys for a long time, and I see the benefit because you can cut through so much waste, dead wood, really, to get to the right person. And you've got a good opportunity to talk to 3 or 4 really good candidates. A lot of businesses don't see it that way. They still think that people are going to walk off the street, or they're going to find them on Indeed, or they're going to find them on the, and that works for certain roles. Don't get me wrong, it does work for certain roles. But certain key positions, you need to do a little bit of research, and unless you know that person, you really need to get some specialists in. But you're right. People do take off. You do drag your heels sometimes, and then you wonder why that person's gone. But then sometimes you wish you had dragged your heels because you take someone on, and they're not what you think they are.
There is that as well.
Polar opposite.
And ultimately, everyone, every business is going to have their own issues, their own agendas, that sort of thing. So it's not like it's something that I really have too much control over than sort of being able to advise somebody to be a little bit quicker where they can. But who am I to say that they can't?
It's a saying, isn't it? Hire slowly, fire fast.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Like, is there a huge pool of recruits out there for the construction sector at the moment?
Yeah,
what does that?
I would say there's a healthy number. Okay. Being honest, I would say there's a healthy number, but I think that for us, we specialise purely in sort of specialist equipment and hire, as opposed to just broad construction. Like, we don't really deal with like the labourers necessary and operators, but we'll do a lot of the permanent vacancies within to support the hire industry, basically. So there's a good few of us about, but I tend to find that you're always going to get ones that sort of nip at your heels, but ultimately we have many clients that come back to us, and that only says one thing, hopefully, that we do try and fill those roles, and that's our main ethos. We could do all the customer service, all the lip service, all the business development in the world, but ultimately if we're not filling those roles, then the clients aren't going to come back to us. So that is always going to be our main focus as well. So So we're lucky enough to have Dan on today. I've
I've got a couple of really good questions for you, but before we get into that, is there anything that's really doing your head in?
So yeah, industry specific. Actually, it's across all sectors. The budget, Labour's budget, it's massively affected industries across the sectors, especially the care sector. We're championing at the moment to get the government to change their decision or get extra funding for the care sector. Otherwise, there's going to be 50,000 care beds that are going to be lost, and that's 50,000 beds that the NHS have got to find. It's catastrophic.
Wow.
Yeah, like just let that sink in. 50,000.
Yeah. And that's just based around what national insurance.
The national insurance hike and minimum wage uplift. So if you think that most social care services are government funded,
and it's got to be one of the hardest industries. I know people work in care homes, by the way. I've got family that work in care homes. It's got to be one of the most hardest places to recruit for as well, isn't it? Because of what's involved.
Yeah. 2 years ago, it was so difficult. Now we've got a huge pool of overseas workforce. Lots of people that have come over, been promised hours, and they haven't been given them hours. So there's a huge pool of people that are already in this country, that are already over on visas, that haven't been given the hours.
And there's an emphasis at the moment as well, where I think the NHS is starting to prioritise, obviously, like sort of more, workers from this country as opposed to overseas, right? So
Very
that's going
much
to change.
Yeah. You've got the hard balance of filling the place with an overseas worker or not filling it at all.
Yeah.
And especially in our sector where it's so underfunded, they can go and get a job in Lidl stacking shelves and get paid more. But you get so much more from being a care worker or working in care. It's so rewarding. So it's not all about financial. And if it was paid really well, you'd get people working in care that don't care.
Yeah.
That are just there financially. So it's always a really hard balance.
Yeah. I've got, I've seen seen you online quite a bit actually, and obviously your friends of friends really from around where I mean, we'll get into we'll get into these two topics, but I'm always been fascinated. One of the things I've been fascinated is how, and correct me if I'm wrong, how easy it seemed for some people to open a care home tomorrow by picking a particular type of building that's just sitting there in there, and before you know it's a care home. And I want to know what difficulties that produces, because all you see is those care homes then kind of shutting down after. They don't seem to be purpose built, do they? Is that something you're striving to change, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah. So the latest development I've done in Chelmsford, we bought a 25-bed elderly care home, closed down because of poor quality. It was empty for 5 years, bought it a year ago. So we've converted half the building to a 6-bed specialist care home for people with learning disabilities, and then we've converted the other side to 6 supported living flats. Obviously, it was a care home before, but we've still had difficulty with planning, with neighbours not wanting it on their doorstep. There's a huge need for it, but it's very much on it might be a huge need for it, but I don't want it on my doorstep.
So why is it so easy for people to... Is there needed more? It just seems that way. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It seems quite easy for people to open and then just shut these care homes.
I can't say nothing's been easy in opening a care home in my career.
Right.
There's always so many hoops to jump through. I think, actually, I know the difficulties we go through, recruitment. You're working on such a small budget. So elderly care homes, for instance, you can make up the difference on what you're getting on social services funded with private payers. So genuinely, social services funded elderly bed is about £700 a week. So that's what social services will pay. A private funded person could be anywhere between £1,200 a week to £2,500. Right. That might seem a lot from the outset. A lot, £1,000 a week's a lot of money. But then, how much would you pay to stay in a travel lodge for one night?
Mm-hmm.
Divide that by 7, and you've got to feed them 3 times a day. You've got to give them care. Yeah. Workforce, all the other hoops. When the bed's empty, you're not getting revenue, and I think that's what a lot of new care providers come to the market. They're probably not planning for, or they're older care providers that haven't evolved.
Yeah,
right.
So I've got an elderly care home, and we're 100% privately funded. It's only a 14-bed elderly care home. It's in the village where I live. It's a lovely little homely. My nan's been there. My great aunt's been there. My wife's nan's in there at the moment, and it's a beautiful little homely home. But at 14 beds, it doesn't really work.
Right.
But it's a nice thing for me to have, and it's kind of personal, that one.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how you got into it all.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Right. So, age of 11, got first paper round. Then went on to do 3 and then 5 paper rounds. A year later, opening up the paper shop in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, getting the papers ready for all the other paper boys, then back there in the evenings, walking people's dogs, decorating. Down my parents' lane, there's a mental health supported living unit, so I got talking to them guys. And then I did some volunteer work at a mental health home called Seaside Lodge. And that's when I really found the love for wanting to care for people. And I went on to college, then went to university, studied mental health nursing, so I'm a registered mental health nurse. And then, age of 20, identified a care home that we wanted to buy, got a couple of investors on board, bought the first one in 2008, and then just rolled it out from then. I've always been quite entrepreneurial, so buying and selling cars and doing up properties and bits and bobs. My dad's got a construction background. He used to be a builder, so I spent my younger years being dragged around building sites and learning how to use my hands, which later in life I found to be very handy. So every care home that I bought, there was development potential. So we either added extra beds or built supported living flats on them sites. To start with, I'd be getting a whole company to do the whole build, and it was just, I wouldn't say a nightmare, but they didn't understand our client group. So when they're coming on site and working with people with quite complex needs and learning disabilities, you want to make sure they're DBS checked and they talk to our service users nicely and they know what to expect, etc. And I was really struggling with that. And then I thought, right, why don't I bring this all in-house, set up my own building company that builds out all my own stuff, which I've been doing since 2015.
And how many have you got now then?
So we've got 2 care homes. We've got 9 supported living sites in Essex. In the process of acquiring a few other bits that I'll be spreading some more news about in the new year.
So you're a specialist in mental health, really?
So it started in mental health and then it went on to learning disabilities, and I found that I could do so much more with the guys with learning disabilities by introducing meaningful activities, by building properties that meet their needs.
Yeah.
Some of these people might have some complex behaviours, so we need to really think about the design and what goes into it. The care home I'm doing in Chelmsford, Daniel Kirby House, so we've got infrared fleece heating in the ceilings. So it's plastered into the ceilings, so there's no radiators. The TVs are recessed just to avoid any damage. Blinds are in the glass. So we've really thought about the design that if someone's having a bad day and throws their remote or their telly in a huff or whatever, they don't smash their telly, which their telly might be the most important thing in that person's world. So then that would create more behaviours. So we've tried thinking about every eventuality to reduce behaviours and to make their life as lovely and meaningful as possible.
So if you had a magic wand, what do you find that's wrong within your sector? What do you do, or what are you trying to do differently that you feel the others aren't?
There's a few things. First one's environment. Environment's so important for someone with a learning disability. Second one, diet.
Yeah.
It's only a little while that I viewed a care home that was for sale, and a member of staff, a McCain microwavable box of chips on a plate upside down, packet of Walker's crisps on top, and I was like, what the actual fuck? I couldn't believe it, and I thought, oh, hold on, it might be that resident's choice, that might be his favourite meal. So I was like, right, okay. And I went to leave and I thought, no, I've got to ask the member of staff. So I pulled the member of staff to one side and I was like, oh, is that his choice? And she went, nah, that's healthy, isn't it? It's potato.
Wow.
You're joking.
And I was like, what the fuck?
And I don't think families probably realise that that's what's happening, do they?
So that then begs the question, in your opinion, with the staff that are in some of these places, is there a real lack of training and knowledge?
So it's not so much the lack of training and knowledge for themselves, it's life skills. Like, I'm very fortunate that my mum's very much into nutrition and she's hammered that into me since I was young. So I know. In the care sector, it's a given thing that your staff are eating KFC, Burger King 3 times a day, smashing energy drinks. They have very little knowledge on nutrition.
Right.
Is that because of long hours that they do, and they're just from that background that they come in and?
No, I don't think it's the long hours. I think it's what they think's right, or whether they don't care.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. So yeah, this is something that I'm developing with a few individuals. We're looking at putting a training program together. It's only going to be 2 hours, and I want to do it free. So key workers, so NHS workers, care workers, etc. We could open it up to everyone. It just gives them a basic knowledge of nutrition, general wellness as well, mental well-being, and the need for keeping active and how important that is on your mental health.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that get taught? If they're like carers,
So there is basic nutrition training.
Yeah. Basic. It sounds really basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think wellness in all sectors is a big thing. It's the big buzzword at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important. I was talking to Steve that was on your podcast a little while ago, and it's 2 construction workers a day taking their own life.
Yeah.
In the UK.
And I think you're right, because we're in that society now where it's too convenient to sit there and entertainment's there. We don't have to get up and do anything, and exercise, and that's what Steve's doing. It's all about getting involved, and it's what you're saying is so true, because I know myself that being a very unactive person in the past, and therefore very, my mental health was just all over the place at one time, and changing that round. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because what resonated with me when I watched something that you did, and I can't remember where I saw it, apologies, but you talked about how you were flying when you were becoming successful to a point where you semi-plateaued to a point where you're ticking along in a way, and then how you kind of lost touch with that I don't know, you lost the buzz for it a little bit, am I right? And I've been in that situation where you've grown a business to a point and you think, right, maybe it's the breather you have, and then all of a sudden you kind of lose focus a little bit. Talk to me about that, because that was really a big thing for me when I saw it.
Yeah, so I built my last care group, Aldenat Care, from 2008, and I sold out in 2020. And it wasn't until I sold in 2020, 3 days after, I really started getting these thoughts, and I was like, I don't feel right. And it wasn't until probably 6 or 7 months later that when I spoke to a life coach, a pal of mine, Will Polston, and we went through everything, my North Star trajectory and all that, and I lost my purpose. So I'd gone from getting up at 5 in the morning, going to the gym, having a routine, being in the office by 8:30, being around the team that I've built from the age of 20.
Yeah.
They become your family, the service users, the care sector type of thing, and I completely lost my purpose. And I was drinking too much, and I was not in a good way at all.
Yeah.
And just having that conversation with Will, it reignited me, because I was searching for what's the issue. Is it that I'm drinking too much? Is it, you rack your brain to think what it is.
No, because it's like a grievance, isn't it? So This is how I experienced it. You build something up to a point where you're right. This is why lots of millionaires lose their money the second time ago, because they're so focused on the first business, and then all of a sudden you realise a little bit of cash, and then you don't really know what you're doing the next day, and then you invest in things that you shouldn't do and get involved in things that you shouldn't do. And that resonated with me, because like when we talk about mental health, there's a lot of people out there. We was at the event the other day, the construction event, and there's owners of businesses that are listening to this, and they're going to experience this. They've either on the point of selling out or whatever, and it's really interesting to hear from somebody that's hit that kind of what next kind of situation.
Purpose is such a massive thing to anybody's life, especially I'd say an entrepreneur, because we think differently. We're completely different to anyone else on the planet. Yeah. We're probably on the spectrum. Yeah. Purpose is massive, and as soon as you lose that purpose, you hear of people selling their businesses in their 50s and then dying a couple of years later. The body's shutting down, or an illness coming apparent.
My dad was the same. Yeah, he worked till he was 78 and retired, and then was dead within 2 years. Yeah, because he's just, whole life was just
And when I think back to when I was doing my mental health nursing training, I was working on some of the Alzheimer and dementia units, and I remember seeing young, successful guys, late 40s, 50s, with early onset dementia and Alzheimer's, that sold their businesses a few years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just gone wallop.
And it's probably and it shows you that, because an entrepreneur, I've always believed, is it's not just about money. The money's the thing that you get from doing what you're doing.
You realise that when you sell.
But you realise that when you sell. But the entrepreneur spirit is all about something new, something different. Oh God, we could solve that problem. Bit what you kind of said on on that video I saw. You've worked out that you're here to help people, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then that's what you were doing as an entrepreneur, really.
Yeah.
You were supporting and helping different situations, and to lose that overnight, and you don't realise that, the impact. So remember that when you're, about to sell your business, Charlie, and make a fortune. You've got to have a purpose in life, mate.
Yeah. I mean, out of curiosity, how did you sort of get out of that state? You came to that realization, which is amazing, and a lot of people won't get to that point either. So yeah, how did you get yourself out of that?
The difficult thing at that time was I was on a 3-year lockout. So my North Star trajectory was that I've been put on this planet to help people, care for people, and I started a few other businesses and wasn't helping people, was lending people money, getting knocked out. So I was on a 3-year lockout. So it was like, wow, what the hell do I do? So it was 2.5 years of really working on myself and working what I want the future to look like. I got into the renewable sector. So as well as caring for people, I care about the environment. And it's just evolved from there.
What would your advice would be then? Someone going through that same journey before they hit that car.
Don't retire.
Don't retire.
The people that are really good friends of mine that are from the older generation that are knocking on the door of like 70, I've said to them all to their death in the ear, make sure you've got something. Make sure it's not just golf. Going out for dinners. Make sure you're doing a bit of consultancy. You're doing it. And I look at my parents. They're 72. Dad's construction background. They bought a place in Portugal, and he's out there laying bricks himself.
It's good.
Fair play.
Yeah, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I think as well. You mentioned, like when you were trying to work out what was wrong at the time. You said about, was it, the drinking? Was it this? Was it that? And I think that's like self-reflecting, right? So it's almost like just being aware of your situation and questioning yourself, right? Because you've got to almost question yourself to work out what is wrong, and then you can go from there. So that's just my takeaway from that. But
so what's next? Or you still, what's next for you in the whole journey? What's your
personally
ambition?
or business wise?
Or both. Tell me both.
So business wise, the care company that I own is called Calm Futures. So yeah, we're in the process of acquiring a couple of bits. The care home that we've just finished in Chelmsford, hopefully that's going to open its doors officially in January. And then it's just slowly growing the business, recruiting the right people. Very fortunate that the profile that I'm creating, we're getting some great candidates, the people that want to come work for us. And then I want to build. So we've got a 2-year target becoming net zero within the care company. So it's an internal one. The care home we've done in Chelmsford, we've got an A rate, wow. EPC, 80 solar panels on the roof, battery storage as well. The other care home that we've just done in Norfolk, we've just done all the insulation, air source heat pumps, solar on the roof. I'm just waiting for that to get the EPC redone on that.
Are these all new builds? Are they refurbs?
No, refurbs.
Okay.
So the care home in Chelmsford is a refurb.
Yeah.
To get an EPC rating of 8.
Yes, he's repurposed that completely, brought it right up to modern standard, hasn't
Yeah. So we ripped out everything. And started again. And I've probably I went overkill on that one because I've named it after my friend. My best friend. I wanted that to be a bit of a legacy piece and people to read in magazines and books, this is how you should be building or converting care homes. This is how these people should live.
Yeah.
Like if you I don't know if you've seen the videos of the walk around videos I've done of the care home, like they're stunning inside. And it's my model is if it's good enough for me or my children or my family, then it's good enough for them.
That's the importance. But how do you how do you scale that? I'm not trying to trip you up, but how do you scale that without losing that culture that you're trying to instill?
Personally, because I've got the building company as well, I can kind of control it to a certain end.
Yeah.
But speaking openly, I don't think that's achievable for people that are probably going to go to market and get another construction company in, because the margins in the care element don't support it. So maybe more needs to be done from a grant point of view from the government to allow these care businesses to... Well, actually, it's not just care businesses, is it? You think of...
Yeah, it's all businesses.
And you think of anyone building a 4-bed house, they're going to put 4 panels on the roof because it ticks a box and gets some sign-off. Why aren't we looking at it? Actually, let's put 16 panels on there. Let's look at a whole house water filter, so the water that we're showering in and drinking, it's actually filtered, and all the crap that goes into it is filtered out, so we're all living a healthy lifestyle.
But it's amazing on all just new builds. I mean, there's a new build up the road here, and then it's amazing. There's probably... It's one of the biggest developments in Northampton, and there's not a solar panel in sight. There's not like a forced air system or anything. There's nothing. It's crazy.
Yeah, I said, are they getting like air source heat pumps on any of it? And they were like, no, not yet. So
I don't understand it, because it seems to be council by council, doesn't it? And I mean, my build's 7 years old, and I remember asking the guy, "Will I have?" Because you only see it on the plan when you buy new, don't you? And I remember saying, "Well, am I going to get solar panels?" Because my mate who bought in Whitstable had solar panels, right? Probably 4, like you said.
Yeah,
but. I rember thinking, wow,
that's going
to bring my bill down. And really surprisingly to me, they said, no, there's no solar panels.
So another bugbear of mine is, we've gone out to a lot of friends of mine that we partner up with a local installer. So Recon, one of my other companies, we are a distributor from a European manufacturer of solar panels. So we've got the UK and Ireland rights. And then we partner up with local installers to install panels. And a lot of my friends' businesses we looked at, a lot of the clients we're working with, some of the paybacks within 2 years. But that was 18 months ago we quoted for that, and they still can't get it through their board. And it's just like...
Oh, that's crazy.
I don't understand where their head's at. Like,
we was involved when the original LED lighting came in, years ago when we were in the industry, and with the fluorescent lighting tubes they changed to LED. It was a simple guy came out and said, right, design this light bulb. I remember it coming out. You just pop that old fluorescent out and put this one in. Fantastic. And they were expensive at the time, them bulbs, because they were trying to bring them into the market. But it was like 18-month, return, and you're thinking, why ain't no one doing it? And it took ages to get that into that.
But you look in Portugal and Spain, for instance, everywhere you look, everyone's got solar everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just we seem to be so far behind. And I don't think the government helps with taking away certain feed-in tariffs, and there's no incentives now.
No, there isn't.
To make your house more self-sufficient.
Because what they need to do, in my opinion, especially on solar, they need to make the solar panels yours. Like, why do I have to bloody take my electricity now and put it into the grid to get it back? Why can't I just run my house?
It's because of the storage.
Yeah. Why can't I do that?
It's because of the storage as well, though.
It's because of the cost of the batteries.
The battery packs. They're like, what is it? You can get like a Tesla wall charging station or something, and it's like a 7-8 grand. I think it is.
I'm not that technical, but if my solar panels have filled my batteries up and I've got enough for the next 2 days, I can turn the bloody things off, can't I?
Nah, because it's not storing it right.
If you design it right.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
If you design it right. It's designed not to work the way that it should be, because otherwise you're not paying the man, are you?
No. So in my head, if you get a power cut, you've got battery storage and solar panels, your house should work.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. So you need a separate inverter that, I don't know the technical side of it, but why is it not built like that to start with?
It's actually so true.
Because it means that someone's not getting their...
You can't monetize it.
Yeah, exactly that. Because everybody would go up your arse.
So the solar batteries and all that, they've almost halved in price over the last year, and even to get it installed, it's so much cheaper, because if you're a bloody window cleaner, roofer, or electrician, you're fitting solar panels now. It's very important that actually you pick the right installer.
Yeah,
you're hearing some horror stories about fires and.
Yeah. So what's going to be new for you then personally? Because
What's going to be new for me?
What are you striving to? Because let me just say, because we spoke about Sam Malins earlier, you know, and you know, I think Sam, like, he's one of them guys that you can listen to, isn't he? He's got that kind of voice, and he's got that kind of thing, and you think, well, people want to hear about his experiences. So is it something that you've ever considered about, you know, helping other businesses support, you know, what you've gone through, or what's new for you? What outside of business, or
so outside of business, I like to help people that are struggling with their mental health, and if anyone's struggling with drinking, etc., I kind of help them on their journey to getting off of it. Personally, I'd like to help people within the care sector, help owners that can't see a way out, or really change their way of thinking in that business. I will say this, every care business that I bought, I've gone in and it's like a big lump in your throat thinking, fuck, how have you not been closed down? And I suppose going in as a consultant and helping these people, I can go in and start educating these people on modern ways of thinking, modern ways of providing care.
And do you think they can do that themselves, or is it just all about funding, that the reason why these people can't do it, or is there things that they can do? No,
it's not all about funding. I think a lot of it's their way of thinking, because it was okay to do it a certain way 20 years ago, that they still in their head they think that's acceptable now.
Because all you hear about is the bad news about care homes, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's all you hear
Who
about.
wants to read good news? Yeah. Look at the media. Everything you read is negative, unfortunately, and it's the country we live in.
But is it because there ain't enough people like you that's gone through that can help these people?
I think the industry is very split. You've got a lot of private equity owned care businesses that aren't all bad, but the real ones that really make a difference are the ones that are owner managed, owner operated, where the owner actually genuinely cares, has got a care background. Alan, who's the managing director of my company, he's worked in care since the age of 16. Care is all I know. So we lead with the care part first, and then the business part second, which sometimes isn't ideal, but we care. We wear our hearts on our sleeve, and we make sure that the people we support live the most normal life as they can lead.
So you're open to, if anyone's struggling out there in the industry themselves, they're privately owned or whatever, and they need support, you would.
I'd love the opportunity to talk to them if they're thinking about exiting. Give them the support, give them some feedback on my journey. I might be able to connect them up with some of my recommended partners that I'd recommend selling to. That was the thing when I sold. I didn't want to just sell to a fund or Joe Blogs. I wanted to sell to someone that will take the business to the next level, that actually genuinely cares. And I went and viewed some of the care services that person run before, and they were beautiful. Yeah. They were beautiful. They were well versed in the sector, lots of experience, and I thought that is a person that I want to sell to.
Yeah. So, because there's a moral. Because I can only imagine, people that you're treating with mental health, the worst thing they want is a change.
Yeah, very much so. And they become your family. They become your family. You see these guys every day. I love to be visible in my care homes and visit them and talk to them and know I'm all on a personal level. They become part of your family, especially when you've run a business for 12 years and they've been in there the whole time.
So inevitably we have to stop for 5 minutes or so and for our sponsors keep us going. So PAR for one of their sponsors. I've worked with PAR for a number of years, and as I've said before, I feel they've been a major part of our business growth strategy.
One of the key things for me is obviously when you look at other businesses, they specialise in every sector. They don't have there's no niche. The great thing for me is PARF is the niche for our industry. The people that they've got on the books are for our industry. The vacancies that they have are for our industry. So for me and for anybody else dealing with PARF, it is the go-to place for the construction and plant our industry.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate the comments there, guys, and absolutely right. We that's our specialist. That's all we deal with. So we've been, established for the last 20 plus years, and ultimately we've got hundreds of clients that use us that keep coming back, and that's because we keep filling the roles. You know, we've got a team of 13 people that are all very, very well trained and very, very knowledgeable in the industry, and ultimately, that's our bread and butter. That's what we do.
And do you get the feeling you get when you're interacting with them and doing things with them? Do you get great feedback from their family as well? Do they? I suppose what you're doing extends on to their siblings.
Yeah, very much so. There's very few operators that are visible in their actual businesses, in their care homes, and I like seeing the people we support achieving life-changing goals. So, for instance, one of the ladies we support last year, she'd done CV writing. She's gone and got herself a paid employment job. She has full-time support. So 24 hours a day she'll have a carer with her. But she's managed to go on that journey.
Okay, so tell me expand on that. On what do you do then? What tools do you, or what is on offer for these people?
I suppose the first thing that I like to do, and I like the team to do, is find out what that person loves to do. That could be banging a drum or peeling potatoes. Yeah. It could be the most outrageous thing. And then let's build a plan around that. How can we make sure that you're doing what you love as much as possible? Live meaningful activities. Like our guys go out and they're loads of fun, bowling, and they're doing activities all day long. And I found when I first started out, the more someone's doing what they love, the less behaviours or the less mental health symptoms they have. Like if I don't go to the gym and exercise in the morning, I feel shit during the day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if I'm doing stuff I don't love, I'm struggling. Yeah. And I'm bored, and I'm probably getting up to no good because the ADHD comes in, and I'm getting on my wife's nerves.
So do you get many people that come through that, like, not drop in, but that you work with them and they then leave?
Yeah.
And
so
success in that.
How the care homes work. So someone will come into the care homes. We'll teach them life skills. To a certain level. A lot of the people we support will never live on their own. Right. They'll all have 24-hour support for the rest of their lives. But we work with them for a couple of years, 2 to 5 years in the care home, teach them some life skills, and then we'll move them on to supported living. That'll either be with us or another care company, and they will go on to continue to progress. They go to college. And get some kind of meaning, or as you said, rightly so, the word purpose in life. Yeah.
Switching over to the construction side of things as well, Dan. I mean, how have you found? Because you say you've got a construction business, why did you feel like you wanted to start that initially for you?
So I mentioned it briefly earlier that the contractors that I was getting in didn't understand this type of clientele, and with budget constraints, I was looking at it thinking, bloody hell, I could do this 30% cheaper and manage to build myself, hit all the targets. With all construction companies, I'm sure when you first start up, you have the wrong workers on board that don't turn up on a Monday, or they're still going on a Monday morning from Friday night. And you look at a wall and it's like, okay, you need to go home. I've got a great group of people that we bring in. Like we've got a plumber that we use, and just great people that now understand what we build, how we build it, and they understand the people we support as well.
Charlie's asking because you probably built about 4 care homes in the time he's took him to refurb his bungalow that we spoke about over the weeks and months. And when we finally worked out that he thought he was going to do the same thing, set up his do everything, he'd done nothing, had he? He'd done nothing.
He blagged it.
He got different people in to do different things. And I think
listen to him.
The only thing he actually managed to do was get a bit of wallpaper off the wall. And he moaned about that, didn't he?
Yeah, but hold on. He only done that after we had a whole podcast on how to do it.
On how to do it, yeah, we did, yeah. So, you're trying to get a little bit of a...
Yeah, I think, a little bit.
He likes to chat up every builder he knows so he can get something out of it.
2015, I built my own house, and I'd go to my care homes during the day. I'd get home at 6 o'clock, and first thing I'd do was clear up the bloody Stella cans that whoever's working there had bloody thrown around the place and the mess they created, and then I'd get my hands dirty. So I tiled my whole house, helped fit the kitchen. Because of budget restraints, I didn't have a choice but to get involved.
But you did it yourself.
Yeah,
I didn't fit my kitchen. I've done a lot myself. I've built like stud walls. I built a massive stud wall, which is good. Which was ideal. Yeah. Knocked walls down as well, which is good. Ripped the whole place out. You know,
so
done
rewarding knocking walls down.
Honestly, knocking walls down is brilliant. Destroying everything in there as much as you can or as much as you need to is the best thing. It's so good. But then you got to think. Then you sit back and think, shit. Now I need to actually make it all work. You know, I need to make it all better now. So, but yeah, no, it's that's been a journey for me, to be honest. It's been amazing. Like what I've learned, because I've never, you know, sort of been hands-on in my life. I've been in, you know, a desk job for the last 10 years. So it's been amazing to, you know, get stuck in. Although I haven't gone to the levels these guys would have liked me to, I think, or it's probably for the best that I didn't. But yeah, it has been good.
I really like the balance of like my care side, and I get involved in the construction side. And when we bought it, I went and had 4 or 5 days and helping ripping out, and I love getting stuck in.
That's got to be so fulfilling, isn't it? Where you've actually gone in and you've designed or helped design and you've been involved, and then all of a sudden you've opened the doors.
Yeah.
And you've had a real impact.
To watch people enjoy it.
So that's the moving bit for me, is when you see someone walk in and they go, "Is this my home?" And it's like nothing they've ever experienced. You know, it's a hotel spec. It's done lovely, and they're like just completely shocked that they're going to be their home to live.
Yeah.
Do you find there's a lot of people that are reluctant to go to a care home as well? Because all I hear from, like, I mean, my parents are like, "Oh, never sent me to a care home, never sent me to a care home." My nan was the same. She ended up in one. A few of mine in my grandparents did, but they were always a bit reluctant. But then actually, you know, I've seen some really horrible ones that they were put into initially, and then when we sort of managed to get that changed, you do see some amazing ones. And you know, I actually as well, I used to do a bit of gigging, so I used to go and sing around different care homes as well back in the day, which was really good. But you saw some amazing ones. So do you find that people are reluctant to get into
people leave it too late to move into a care home? So I'm a massively for moving to a care home as soon as you can. So if you think loneliness is one of the biggest causes of Alzheimer's, like my relatives, they were sitting at home rotting on their own, no meaningful activity. They might even put the telly on. They just sat there on their own all day. But they can move to a care home, be around similar peers, have activities all day, get their hair washed, be cared for, have 3 great meals a day.
So can I talk to you about something a bit controversial that's coming through government? And I don't know if you've been involved, but you must have been involved in your other parts of your care home with this assisted dying scenario. Now, there's I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And you don't have to have a thought about it at all. But I was horrified. I like the idea of it for myself, but I've also been horrified by some of the things that have been going on in Canada, for example, and it's mainly to do with mental health patients, where people have been kind of signed off to take their own life because they're having a bad day.
Wow.
In a way, you know, and there's no terminal illness. And it's gone to a point because where the legislation's so crap that homeless people have been in that point. Have you experienced? Have you got a thought on that, or is it something you're not coming?
I think we've got to be really careful of allowing people to take their own lives when they've got mental health issues going on.
Right.
And I think it should only be for people that are terminal.
Because that is a worry, isn't it? Because, you know, you could be talked into something that...
Yeah, very much so. Like, if you lost the feeling of the rest of the body and you didn't want to live, or whatever that may be, you should be able to have a choice to go, look, speak to your family, I don't want to be here. And if they're all in agreement, then you should be allowed to follow that.
So how are they protected if there's no family? What's the protection for people in that kind of care home system? Like on mental, your patients, for example, if they're protected.
When the care homes, we've not come across people that want to. Well, the little old Betty or whoever it is might be, I don't want to die.
Yeah,
which is horrible to hear.
Yeah, but there's no. But I don't know how to explain what I'm
no, you're trying to say there should be a proper protocol. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I just thought it was interesting because it was it's gone through government at the moment. It's been passed, isn't it, to go to the Lords. So the assisted dying legislation is going to hopefully it will come out, depending on how you feel about it. But the other countries in the world that have tried it, some have been good and some have actually, like by the looks at Canada, have had an absolute disaster with it.
Had a stinker.
We'll be policing it, big time, I reckon, in the UK. But that's going to be for a good thing, a good reason.
But really. It's okay policing it, but the controversial thing is when you're pushing things out to private sector, that's when it's hard to police, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, but anyway, we normally talk about a few construction bits and pieces. I think we've got a couple of questions. Join in if you can.
Right, okay, yeah. So we got a bit
breaks it up a bit.
We have a bit of news and a bit of discussion. And I've got three things actually, but I'll start with the first one, and I may need a little bit of an education off of you on this. So, this anti-dumping tariffs come about now, and I wondered if you could shed some light on this and tell us what you know about this, because this is actually quite hot news at the moment, and it's basically restricting foreign, if I'm right, Chinese flooding our market with construction equipment when, say, a UK manufacturer like JCB is then struggling to compete.
Yeah, so the legislation was put forward for this TRA. It's called this tariff, basically, where the Chinese manufacturers will be hit with a dumping tariff similar to in America.
That's what Trump's doing, yeah.
Yeah, and to protect the UK manufacturers, which, funny enough, there isn't many apart from JCB really, and a couple of others. But my thoughts on that, Mark, I've always said is, unfortunately, if we like it or not, we've allowed the Chinese manufacturers in, and they do a good product. But the worry for me is because they've given their customer base now choice. We've employed a lot of people in the industry to work for these companies. So there's a lot of UK people working for these Chinese companies that are now maybe not being able to be employed because, where are they going to go? Is JCB or others going to take them people on? I don't see it somehow, but and I'm becoming somebody that's talking about JCB all the time. I'm not. It's nothing to do with JCB. It's to do with that they're rightly trying to protect something, but the open market to me is all about choice. As a consumer, I want choice. If the product hits the right legislation, then I want to be able to pick what I want to pick, because we didn't complain when we had Japanese and Korean and Turkish and German and everything else. It's not affected, and we're out of Europe, by the way, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's not. Surely it's affecting every. If I go and choose a Komatsu as a Japanese product, if I go and choose a Volvo, it's still affecting the UK manufacturing base. So we're either in Europe or not in Europe. So that means Europe should be part of that tax as well. And the Chinese, as I said, there's loads of Chinese manufacturers that are putting products into the UK market. We've accepted those products in the last few years, and we've employed quite a few people from that. So I want to know where that is. I mean, that's it. Because you're looking at tariffs, some tariffs, just to let you know, of 83% on top of a machine. And that's because it seems like if your government, Chinese government backed, you're going to get hit by more.
Whoa.
Which genuinely probably 100% of them are.
Yeah.
So it's the same as the solar sector. The Chinese have just absolutely flooded the market, and But
the Chinese are, we spoke about it on here before. They're ahead of the game with the battery technology. They're very good at that. That's what they're really good at, and they do add some value. And it's only for particular machinery. It's for bigger machinery, which the people that are putting this legislation together, they want to have a real look at what the market share of that machinery was in the first place, and it wasn't as big. It's not as if they've lost their pants over the fact that the Chinese have come in. But yeah, I think it's a bit disappointing that we can't, but what they're trying to say, just to keep you up, is they're trying to say that they've purposely reduced the value of the machinery coming in by about 30%, which is being artificially reduced to get themselves into the market.
Mm. Yeah, but isn't that competition? Isn't that monopoly? Isn't that?
Well, that's exactly
isn't that good business? We only said on last week's that companies sometimes do a loss leader, don't they? To get shops do it. They reckon that you go in Sainsbury's and you might go in there for your milk, and they reckoned, didn't they, a few years ago, that the milk was it was actually selling at a small loss because when you get the donuts and the all the rest of it on the way out as well, and you know what I mean.
My granddad used to have a go at me dad about the fact that he was driving a Japanese motorbike, you know.
But that's what I mean. In every other sector,
because it was cheap, so they must have come in cheaper than the Triumph, you know, like all the other big boys that have come in from Korea and Japan and everything else. When they first hit these shores, they would have been up against whoever the manufacturer was at the time, so they would have come in with a little bit of an incentive.
Yeah, I remember my dad telling me that Kawasaki had come in and all the rest of them, and Yamaha, and you're right. It was people used to ride the Triumphs, and then Kawasaki, Yamaha come in, and it was these were these new foreign brands.
Going back to what the Chinese have done with the solar panel market, the top 10 Chinese companies, when you look online, are all making hundreds of millions of pounds worth of losses this year. Yeah. So they're just massive loss leaders, just flooding the market everywhere.
That's up to them, surely, isn't it?
It is a point that, and that's probably why they're talking about that kind of thing, is because of the Chinese government, you know, backing that to be able to get the product in the market and then flood it, and then everyone comes out of it.
And it goes back to how ethically sourced the products are, whether slave labour is being used, which we know is rife in China. And I think we're going to find over the next few years that actually the more and more companies, and especially people, are going to think about, hold on a minute, am I happy with taking that digger, that part's been manufactured in, say, X-Gen region, for instance, which has been linked to slave labour, where you've got kids 7 or 8.
I've suspected that for a long time, because obviously when you get something, if you think, you know this, right? When you get a product that comes all the way from China, so shipped here, manufactured all the way to China here, and it's cheaper than JCB down the road.
But there's a reason behind that. I mean, you need to go over and have a look. Look, I went to a factory not long ago, and the reason why they're cheaper is quite simple. This thing was absolute massive, and we're talking hundreds of acres for a factory, yeah? You know, how many 95-ton excavators have you ever seen in your life that weren't at a show in the UK working? Probably none. No. Maybe one if you're lucky, yeah? Yeah. There's 40 of them just lined up ready to go, yeah? So the rest of the world, and the reason why there's 40 of those and then 75 ton of that, there's 6 people running that factory. So it's nothing to do with how young they were, whatever. Is they've built factories from ground level, greenfield, in the last 10, 15 years that are completely computerised and completely robotic. So when you look at some of the American factories, they're still working in the 70s and 80s. There's still part comes through. You go to like anyone you name as a big brand, you go to them and there'll be people, there'll be heavy labour, they'll be moving things into place. Then there'll be maybe a robot that might do a bit of welding. Then it'll move on, and then somebody will be painting it and shaving it. But the Chinese aren't like that. They built factories that, I don't know, it's 5 people looking after this whole factory, producing hundreds and hundreds of machines. So that's why they're cheaper. It's because it's not about the labour anymore. It's about the facilities and the fact that they've started from fresh. As I say, the American manufacturers, the European manufacturers, they're still working at the same factories.
I read something the other day. They built, I think, 1,000 miles of road in a few days with 100% robots and drones. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Have you seen them bridge builders they got as well? Them bridge builders where like it's all like sort of counterbalance, and then there's like this massive like thing that goes over the edge of the bridge, and then it just drops the bridge in place, and then it just carries on. So it like just moves, and it just, you know, I don't even think there's many people involved.
But what's ridiculous about the money that's going to and we're talking about that legislation is that a lot of the Chinese factories have already moved some of their factory processes into different parts of the world. So are you going to tariff everything that's not UK? So how do you get around it? So as soon as they open a factory or buy a factory in Europe, it's all done and dusted. It's gone. So aren't we just wasting our time rather than just trying to get the economy up and running and putting less pressure?
It does seem a mess about. It's something else. So the next bit is, and this one, I'm not going to mention the company. So I just want to hear your ideas on this. So I'll tell you my experience before I read this section out, right? So I come from the old school A plant days where you just keep things going, don't you? I give it a new coat of paint, tidy up the engine, keep it running, get it out on hire. But a company has decided they're going to adopt sustainable practices by rebuilding old machinery to extend their lifespan, supporting a circular economy model. Now that intrigues me because for the last 10 years, it's been driven down our necks that it's got to be minimum of 3 years old. As soon as it's 3 years in a day, it's got to be gone. So now a tier one company is now rebuilding and refurbishing their machinery to support the circular economy. But we were doing that 20 years ago. So what?
But that's been driven by the contractor, isn't it? I've got to have a new machine because of emissions and stuff like that. Whereas in the American model was always buy the machine, after 4 years, spend 30, 40 grand on it and then get it for another 4 or 5 years. So but it's only now changing, but that's led by the contractor. I mean, I don't know how the contractor feels about that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, would you think, well, here's a question then, do you feel we're going back down that route then?
I don't know if we're going back down the route. I'd like to see it actually, just because one manufacturer's refurbishing, renewing machinery, I don't know if everyone's going to be doing that. I don't know what an impact that will have. I mean, our plant hire industry in the UK is like we sell, for example, we sell like 28,000 excavators a year, whereas Europe would sell 18,000. The reason is because our plant is driven by plant rental. So therefore, we buy and every 3 years we turn it over 3 to 4 years. So there's more volume, whereas the European model was always based around end user. So it was like the guy would keep it for 10 years or 5 years. So there's always that difference, but which is changing slightly in the model. But
and then what happens to the old machines? Shipped abroad?
Shipped out abroad, or whatever. Yeah. Or there's a second-hand market in UK, isn't there? Because all the big, the legislation around emissions and stuff is really pushed by the main contractor. So if you're just a small, like, you go and build one of your care homes with your company, it's up to you really how if you have a tier 5 engine, you're meant to have you could probably get away with whatever you've done. It's within your own.
You might have an old smoker going on
But for a tier 1 company, how does that tickle the net zero stuff and using older machines?
Well, that's what they're saying here. They're saying they're supporting a longer lifespan and a circular economy. But in my mind, if you've manufactured something, so imagine the carbon it took to mine the material, manufacture it. Once you've got something, if you can keep that going, there's no additional carbon in mining or carbon in manufacturing to offset.
But the model only works like we discussed this a few weeks ago, didn't we? Like rent or buy. The model works for the contractor that way because he's getting a better return, a longer return on that. But the hire company, they need to realise the sale of the machine to get cash into their business to start again.
It's the model, yeah.
So that's the model. So it's a different model. So for hire businesses, I can't see how that's feasible.
No, okay.
Where do we think the future lies in hydrogen, electric diggers? And
electric small, hydrogen will be larger, I think. Yeah.
I think there's technology at the moment that Nifty Lifters, the access company Nifty Lift, have worked with Speedy Hire on it's a dual fuel hydrogen electric, and I think that's where companies have got it wrong. They've either gone down electric or they're trying to do solely hydrogen.
Yeah.
But what they've done is basically you can put a hydrogen cell in the Vic, and as the battery runs down, the hydrogen doesn't become the next source. So most bi-energy machines at the moment, you run out of battery, and like your car, you run out of battery, and the petrol kicks in. Yeah. Whereas the hydrogen then charges the battery back up again.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's where it really is going. That's where I can see the future in that. The problem with hydrogen, it's dangerous, isn't it? No one knows how to handle it. Yeah. So
does that mean it will have like no downtime at all?
You just got to be able to change the hydrogen cell.
The hydrogen in those are in little BOC, bottles.
So and then hopefully we'll get to a point where you've seen. I think it's Toyota, isn't it, with a car where they've got put it in and out the cell, and that's what you really want, because you want to. You've got a different problem. If you're just going to run solely on one fuel, I think I think it needs to be, you know, if it needs to be battery, it needs to be in a situation where you're charging it with another, like, green fuel. Whereas at the moment, you're plugging it into a generator.
Yeah. Especially when you're with a site that's not got miles away from anywhere.
Absolutely. So, yeah, hopefully that will be the solution.
Slight change of topic here, but have you seen that battery that they've created that's like a diamond battery? I saw it in the news the other day.
Yeah, but you know, I read all about that, right? And that can only be used at the moment on small applications. You know that, don't you?
Yeah, I assume so because it was tiny, to be fair.
It's got
so I didn't think it'd be
3,500 year life.
I think it was like, I thought it said like 5,000 year. I thought
it's a weird
real diamonds.
No, well, no, it's
like,
synthetically. It's a synthetically made diamond. That's a battery.
They put something into it. I don't know what it is. I'm not a scientist. Like atom or something like that they put into it.
It's got something 14 in it. They called it, wasn't it?
Did they?
I'm trying to remember what it's
called.
And
it'll just last forever.
It's a it's a thing that basically you know when you've got something that's radioactive and it gives off radiation.
Yeah.
So that's what it's doing. It gives something off. And it's got a half-life of about 3,500 years, and you can put heat couplers on it or something, and that can then convert to an electrical current. So what they're saying is that any shit that NASA sends to space can go for 3,500 years.
Wow! Now. Can you imagine the technology that's out there at the moment that we don't even know about, but we get drip fed it? Like just drip fed it because they can monetize it every year. Drip fed it so we can monetize it.
That's why we're only on 5G. I don't know what 4G was about.
I find 5G no bloody good. No, go back on 4G.
Because they're probably at 15G at the moment, but they won't, as you say, they'll slip it out every other couple of years.
Yeah,
go on then.
The last one. Oh, sorry.
Go on your when you mentioned about renewing machinery. So I've got a company called Electric Vehicle Innovations. So I'm just doing the first project at the moment where we're taking an old classic that's potentially had its engine taken out of it. The first one we've got is a 1972 Aston V8 Vantage. It's next film cast. They took the engine out of it. They cut all the suspension. They put a Chevy LS engine in it to do the stunts. And then they took all the engine and drivetrain out of it and then sold the bare shell. So I looked at it and was like, right, okay, perfect donor vehicle to change to electric. I'm doing good. I'm converting an old car that potentially be scrapped, putting it back on the road. But what I did differently, I went and bought a Porsche Taycan, cut the shell off the Porsche Taycan, and then we've put the shell of the Aston Martin V8 onto it. So we're probably 6 months away from the first one being ready for development, and then we're going to build 10 of them. So really? The next one, we've moulded the body shell of the Aston V8. We've changed it. We've made it a bit futuristic. The next one's going to be moulded, the body shell's going to be moulded out of carbon fibre, so we'll never need a donor car again. So we'll just either buy a second-hand Porsche Taycan or potentially a damaged one, cut the shell off, put this carbon fibre body over it.
That's great, yeah.
Awesome. Is that an expensive build, is it? Or buying the Porsche in the first place?
Yeah. It's not.
It reminds me of. Do you ever watch Rust to Riches? You ever watch that on TV? On Netflix? No. So they do some crazy stuff on there. They trade up. So the idea is you might want a particular car that's all been zooked up or whatever, but no one does that car. So but you might be selling one. But you actually want something else. So I'll buy that, then I've got to sell it to you to buy that, to do that up, to give it to you.
Sounds as complicated as your
it gets really complicated. But what they done
sounds more complicated than that.
What they done the reverse, which made me laugh. There was a guy and he said, "I want a Tesla." You know what I mean? And they were like, "Oh yeah, right, well, yeah." And he went, "Yeah, but I want electric out, and I want V8 in." But they couldn't get the electrics to work properly.
So you've got quite a few fingers in pies then now, have you?
A few fingers in pies, but I'm trying to I am mainly focusing on the care business. The care business is where my heart lies. Yeah. The other ones are just projects. Yeah.
Cool. So what's your last one, Mark?
Right, so the last one, and this one's probably a conversation for all of us here. Ofwat supports the accelerated delivery of 32 water infrastructure schemes valued at 2.2 billion, focusing on the storm overflow management. So that's the news. it's obviously a hot topic at the moment because all this sewage going in the sea and the rivers and God knows what else has been going on for a while. So my question for discussion now between us is 33 schemes enough? That seems small for the whole of the UK. And is 2.2 billion enough? I don't think so, do you?
I don't think that'll scratch the surface.
No. I mean, how much was the Thames Tideway? That was just one sewer, wasn't it? That was like 30 billion, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the time you put your plant on it. Yeah.
So 2.2 billion doesn't, and 33 water infrastructure projects just seems like a tick box to, we're sorting out some of the sewage. I mean, that wouldn't sort out a town, would it?
Well, I think, if you're talking about flooding and sewage, protection, I mean, it's just got out of hand anyway, hasn't it?
It doesn't help they're building on floodplains and various bits and bobs.
But is this 33 in total? Do you think, like, if they're building a new development, they're going to put like one in there, and that doesn't include that 33?
Well, no, because I think that's smaller stuff. This is supposed to be 33 large projects to sort out storm overflow. But when you, I mean, they did a map, and it really interests me. There was a map that come out in summer, and they put red dots, all over the map to show where there'd been overflows in the last year. Like sewage overflows through outfalls, and it might also have been. It was like a kid had done join the dots of the UK. It was the whole lot.
Gee.
And I've got a theory here because my missus. I say I don't want my daughter, and I won't swim in the UK. I'll swim as much as you want abroad. Go on holiday, I'll go in the sea. I won't swim in the UK at all because of the sewage and all the rest of it.
But look what's just in our drinking water. So I'd done a little exercise a few years ago where I put 2 electronic probes in a glass of just tap water, and it burns the bleach that's in our water. It burns it away. The water turns brown, green, so all the shit that's in it comes to life. So that water looks like pond water. It's disgusting. That's what we're drinking.
Sorry, say that again. You got some tap water.
So tap water out the tap. These 2 electrodes which you put into the water, and it burns the bleach and chlorine that's in the water, the fluoride that's in
to get it out?
Yeah, to get it out, and it shows the water's true colour.
Oh, right.
Mate, right. And there's a film that gets created on top. So in my house, we've got a whole house water filter. I drink hydrogen water, and we've got reverse osmosis that takes all the shit out of the water that we cook all our food in, etc.
So a standard. So if we'd done that at home, we would end up with like some weird.
Honestly, and you think, fuck, I'm letting my kids drink that, and they've just upped. I think last year they just upped the double the amount of fluoride they're putting in the drinking water because of the poor children's teeth. But fluoride in the brain, it dampens everything down.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that because that's really interesting because someone told me something a few months ago and I ended up Googling it up, and someone was telling me that fluoride is a byproduct of something we do or make over here. Yeah. And then
they didn't have anywhere to put it.
Yeah, so you get it in the water. Yeah. And one of the things it does do, it's supposed to be kind of helpful for the teeth, but it's poisonous on a higher level, right?
Yeah. And going back to China, and you think how advanced China is, things like TikTok. TikTok in China is an education platform. And then TikTok gave it to the Western world to dampen down us.
I've heard that from someone else.
Yeah.
TikTok in China, you can't watch all them dance videos. TikTok in China is all education stuff. They can't see what we can see, all my U-boat jokes and everything else. They can't see. They can't see any of that.
So we haven't got a Chinese off shop and someone,
we haven't got a Chinese.
There's 3 Chinamen talking about the same thing.
It's not called digging deep. It's called digging maths.
Well, I'd say, isn't there a stat though that you say that the water you're drinking out the tap has probably been for 8 people?
Oh, mate.
Oh.
Yeah, they reckon.
I didn't want to know that.
Is that a good one to end up? Well, that's a filtration system, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely.
They do say if you're really thirsty in the old Sahara, you could drink your own urine, don't they?
Well, yeah.
Not that you want to, but
there's nothing wrong with that. It's probably safer than what you're talking about drinking now.
Yeah, because I filtered it.
Yeah, exactly that. So now it's time for our sponsors. We got a bit of time from our sponsor, and there we go, Charlie. I don't know if you want to.
There we go. Yeah, no. So, new weekly instalment of Hot Jobs for the week. So, we have currently many jobs. So, visit the website pathrecruitment.com. However, 3 of the top ones at the moment that we've got, or 3 of the ones that we really need people for. So, we've got a plant fitter in Bedford, which is paying £19 per hour, roughly between 40 to 45k per annum plus overtime, which it's a really good company as well, this one. So they've got lots of progression, they've got lots of different opportunities. You know, if you want to become a service manager or something like that, then that is something that they could potentially do for you. They are a market leader within their sector, so give us a shout if you're interested in that. On top of that, we also I've got a plant manager / hire controller opportunity. So it's probably more of a hire controller, but it's a step to get into plant management as well. So that's based in Leicester, and that's 35 to 40k per year. There's no weekend work on that. It's plant and tool hire related, so anyone from plant or tools would be, you know, spot on for this. And again, there's progression for that, 22 days holiday plus bank holidays. So additionally, what have we got? We've also got a sales representative in Manchester. That's for portable accommodation, welfare units, that sort of thing. So we're looking at around the 40k salary for that, plus commission. So OTE, on target earnings for that, will probably come in at around 55 to 60k. Again, no weekend work on that one. And again, you know, really good company to work for. So give us a shout if you are interested in that.
Cheers, Charlie.
Yeah.
So, Dan, if anyone is interested, needs to, you know, and following you, and you know, how do they get hold of you? Home, how do they get hold of you?
Add us on LinkedIn, Daniel Wylie. If they go on my website, www.wileygroup.co.uk, all my ventures are on there, and they can get in contact with us.
No,
brilliant.
Look, appreciate you coming on. It's really nice to talk to people with a different aspect than just boring old plant hire that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
so thanks for coming on. It's been really good.
That's been lovely. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Thank
Cheers.
you.